Welcome back, dear viewers. My name is Dayo, Omoogun, like I said before, and today on the Polity, we're talking about the correctional service in Nigeria, what used to be more popularly known as the prison service. And of course, you agree with me that there are a lot of inadequacies, a lot of very negative reports about that sector, about that institution, if you like. And today we want to take a look at what government is doing to at least shore up whatever image is left of this sector, whatever it is that can be done. What exactly is government doing? Is government showing any interest? Is government concerned at all? And so today I have a guest with me, Associate Professor Uju Agomoh, who many of you will associate that name with power. She'll tell us the rest about herself, because I think it's better when it comes from her. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you.
I think I can call you Prof already.
Associate Prof for now.
All right, so tell our viewers who you really are.
Oh, okay, and at least you know my name. You
exactly.
They know my name from what you have said.
Yeah.
It is Uju Agomoh, that's my name. I am the president of Power International. I am also a member of the United Nations Subcommittee on Prevention of Torture, and which is actually the organ of the United Nations that is mandated to visit all places where people's liberty actually deprived. So, which means prisons or correctional centers, as we have it in Nigeria, police stations, social care homes, migration camps, and all of that, psychiatric hospitals. I also happen to be an associate professor of criminology and security studies with the Chrisland University, Abeokuta, and I do teach students from that university. In addition, I'm currently the secretary of the Independent Investigative Panel on alleged corruption and other violations against the Nigerian Correctional Service, which is a panel that was set up by the Honorable Minister of Interior sometime last year. We had the inauguration on 30th of September with a mandate of primarily to conclude this year, 1 year, to look at overall overall issues around correctional centers, and then correctional service itself, not just the facilities, not just the center, but correctional service, which of course includes both custodial and non-custodial, but also to deal with some other issues. It may also interest you to know that I had been in the past the special rapporteur on police, prisons and centers of detention for Nigeria, while I was with the National Human Rights Commission as a council member for 2 terms, which is 8 years. I've also been a member of the presidential committee on the congestion of prisons on 2 occasions, as well as a member of the presidential committee on prerogative of mercy, and in addition to some other things that so I think I will spare others of that. But basically, my disciplines are law, psychology, criminology, sociology, deviant behavior, and prison studies, and that's just me.
That's a very rich CV, if you ask me, and that's even abridged from what you have said. Now, by the way, before we go to the next main question, what exactly is Power?
Power is a non-governmental organization. When we started in 1994, which was exactly 30 years last year, December, it was established in December 16th, 1994. That name was actually given by inmates of the Kirikiri Medium Security Correctional Center. They had indicated the terms they wanted rehabilitation in the name, they wanted welfare in the name, but we ended up having a very long name, which is Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, and that's Power's acronym. But as the organization began to work in that sector, we began to realize that to have an effective impact, we needed to see some of the other things happening that led people into custody in itself. So because we needed to interface with the law enforcement agencies, we needed to interface with the judiciary. So it became more appropriate to be known as Prawa. And oftentimes people will say, what is the meaning of Prawa? And I was asked them, what is the meaning of Coca-Cola? You know, so the truth is that when you have a brand, it's easy to then have the name on. But last year, the Prawa's name was then changed to Prawa International as part of the decision of the board, given that it's 30 years, and the decision of the board is that Prawa needs to do more, not just about Nigeria, but need to do more for also within the sector, but also going out. Beyond that time, we've done some work in some countries. We've done some work in Rwanda, in Burundi, in Democratic Republic of Congo, in Kenya, in Zambia, under the prison reform intervention in Africa. And maybe I should also have told you that I used to be the president for the International Corrections and Prisons Association, ICPA Africa chapter. So Prawa had some in the engagement in Africa, but not with intention of ensuring that we are now in, doing work across board. We used to have an office also then in Ghana. Okay. But now with Prawa International, there is the desire of the governance structure of Prawa to ensure that the work of Prawa is fully integrated in all the countries of Africa, as well as for Africans in the diaspora.
Right.
Okay. So Prawa International became a name that we're now registered in the CSC since last year. Now,
you talked about the establishment in 1994.
Yes.
30 years ago.
Yes.
Going to 31 this year.
Yes.
In this space of time, you want to talk about one, two, three things. I mean that really hit the bar. I mean that really you really are proud of. Just maybe one or two.
So I should say that I thought you were doing it. Okay, if we do the one that I'm proud of, I think we should also do the ones I'm not too proud of.
All right. Okay. Good.
So let's start because
maybe let's just do good ones. Maybe let's just do two and two here.
Let's start with the good ones.
Right.
So the very first thing that I think we need to commend is the fact that there is an openness. When we started, you dare not get into the custodial center, you're the then prison and say you want to come in. Who are you to enter there? As a civilian or as a media personnel. No. So now one of the good things is the openness. So you can see more openness of the persons also in the service, and you see more people talking about the issues, and which is directly connected with that level of openness.
Accessibility.
The second thing that also have changed, when we started, there were it was a struggle to get development partners to agree to do anything around the sector.
Wow.
I mean, later I could tell you some of the things we did to begin to make that happen. But now, a lot of development partners are very willing to do work and engage on this particular sector. I think that's those two are positive that we need to commend.
Right.
Now to the two that are not too good.
Go on.
One is the fact that increasingly the population of persons in custody, the breakdown of that statistics is very worrisome. Let me explain.
Right.
Before now, you used to have people who have not been convicted, but not to the degree of the proportion that we have in this day. So most times you will have inmates who will either be about the same percentage, equal percentage, or even more that have been convicted.
Right.
Now, when inmates are convicted, it's easier for the correctional service to plan the program for the budget. It is also easier to control. Inmates who are convicted are easier to manage than those who are not convicted. Okay, so that is very, very worrisome. That over these years, we are getting worse in terms of the and why that is a problem is that the Controller General of Correctional Service have the power to transfer an inmate from a custodial center that is not that is overcrowded to where that is not overcrowded.
Right.
He has that power.
Right.
The zonal coordinator, who is the assistant controller general, can do that for the correctional service centers that are within the zone. Right. For the controller general, he can do it for any part of Nigeria. He can move somebody from Lagos and move to Sokoto or whatever.
Right.
For the zonal coordinator, he or she can do that for facilities are within the same zone.
Is it discretionary or are there specific guiding factors?
Whatever, I just give you one example, which is if the population is higher in one, you can go as by decongesting. You have the power. The controller of the state can do the same for the facilities that are within the state. But look, if you have a bulk of the people who have not been convicted, when you move them, they will become it will be terrible for logistics, because if they're going to go to court, how then do you do it? So you see, because of the fact that the proportion is now more and more of those who haven't been convicted, it becomes problematic. And therefore you
can't take advantage of where
you don't have overcrowding, because it is about 30 custodial centers that we're having critical problem in terms of overcrowding. There are some custodial centers that are under locking, so we can't take that advantage. The second thing that I'm very worried about is the proportion that are young people. If you now enter a custodial center, you would think you're in a school, and this is the future of the country. So it is danger signs, big time danger signs. So those are the two negative ones. Can I tell you one that is in the middle, good or bad?
Go ahead quickly.
Okay, one is to say the good, partly good, is that with the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019, we did what we had not done before. We were able to have the non-custodial element, which means having to supervise persons or sanction people in the community, which are supposed to save money.
Yes.
The bad aspect is that we are not funding it enough. We are not utilizing it. So at least you can see a very good thing that we have not taken full advantage in the dimension that we are supposed to take.
Right. Okay. So now that means that it must be your work from Power that gave you the pedigree that announced you to the point where you probably the government felt, comfortable to make you secretary of this current panel that is looking at alleged corruption and all that in the Nigerian Correctional Service.
Maybe I'm suspecting, maybe so. So one day I should ask very direct questions, maybe to the minister. Why exactly did you choose me to be the secretary? But a lot of people tell me that they are quite impressed with the work of Power. It may interest you to note that Power have implemented over 79 projects in the sector. During the 30th anniversary of Power, we were able to display all of the projects, the dates, the location, the impact, who supported it.
Wow.
Power have also carried out about 26 standard key researches in the sector.
I see you have quite a number of publications.
We have over 50 publications across the board. So people say that we seem to be a prey point for reference on this work in the continent of Africa.
Wow.
And that's probably one of the things that inspired the board to say, listen, we need to do more. Not so, because so many times I see heads of correctional service across many countries asking me, why is Power not in my country? I won't call those countries.
Wow.
Why, something like that. So I think there is a strong need to make sure that this happens. And we've seen organizations, there are organizations that have actually gone up to 100 years. I'm a member of an organization that is called the International Penitentiary and Prisons Foundation.
All right.
IPPF. IPPF is over 150 years. Yes. So how did they get there? So the impact we have to find a way to integrate this impact across board. So I suspect so. And
which is to say that you are very well prepared for the assignment that you have on hand. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about a few of these publications? What are they about?
Okay. All of these publications, with the exception of the Act, the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019, every of the ones we have here are on non-custodial measures.
Okay.
Now, when just about the nick of time when we had COVID, Power had the because we had been very involved. I actually was a technical consultant for for the National Assembly. Not it was free. Not when I say consultant, it was as if anything was paid. But I will provide the technical support.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing how to explain because technical
support for the National Assembly.
I was already thinking in hundreds of millions of naira.
Technical support for the National Assembly, both the committee on Interior for the House of Rep and a committee on Interior for the Senate. And let me explain.
Right.
A lot of time people get it wrong. When they see the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019, they thought it was all of the past efforts to create this law that was this. That's not it.
Okay.
But before the 2019 law was signed, there have been several attempts, more than 15 years, trying to have a new legislation for then prison, Nigerian Correctional Service, which never happened. But sometime around 2018, I could remember vividly, as one of them was around April, I was invited and my team in Power to attend the public hearing of 4 separate private member bills on things to do with prison,
prison,
hosted by the Committee on Interior for the House of Rep. And I came after I made my presented submission of power. The then chairman of the committee, he asked whether I could help them to harmonize the input from these 4 different private member bills. That is whether Power could do that. And we said no problem. Soon after that, the Senate Committee on Interior held their own public hearing. Again, having 4 other different private member bills, including one of the bills that was sponsored by our First Lady now, Senator Tinubu, and her bill was on the women.
All right.
So again, after the input, they made the same request of Power that we should help harmonize this. I recall that the retreat for the members of the committee for the House of Rep, we held it in Enugu, whereas the retreat for the Senate was held at Sheraton Hotel in Lagos. The First Lady, Denny, which was a senator, she came personally to that event with the deputy governor, then deputy governor of Lagos. So all of those things gave birth to this new law. And I think I wanted to mention that because apart from that law, every other thing is different. Now, this law was passed by the then president on the 31st of July, 2019. But we found out that the implementation was not working as we needed it. So Power sought support to implement a project titled Effective Implementation of Non-Custodial Measures. Because non-custodial measure is one big feature of the new law. The whole of Part 2 of that new law, including Section 2, Subsection 1B of that new law that talks about non-custodial measures. So now this law included developing resource materials. We didn't have anything. We had a law. We didn't have anything to build the capacities of people. So what you have here is 2 major documents. We have the standing order. Anybody who understands the correctional service understand that the Bible, the holy book for them, is a standing order. The previous standing order for the service was based on the previous law. So we now had the standing order for custodian, which was developed in, actually was a technical support to the Nigerian Correctional Service to produce this. Then we have the standing order for the non-custodian. So we have 2 standing orders. And these standing orders are based on the provisions of the new law. So it became clear. But that wasn't it all. We had to look at the training institution. So training curriculum for custodial and non-custodial measures. Because now in the various training institutions, there are 7 training institutions of the Nigerian Correctional Service across board. There are staff there who then trained other staff that come, whether new recruits or those coming for development courses. So we wanted to make sure that they understand how these things can be integrated into their work. Then beyond that, the lecture manual, non-custodial, so that the people who are teaching, can, because we wanted it to be sustainable.
Like training the trainers.
So you have that. You also have the trainer's guide.
Oh, okay.
Training manual. The students can have it. Trainer's guide, which those who are the trainers can also use. Interestingly, we developed also the operational guidance note in terms of the implementation of non-custodial measures, including all the forms. So all of what you see here are the resources that Power developed through that, over time, to from that 20 to we did in 2020, 2021, and all through, to be able to provide materials, resource materials for some of the trainings that we were doing. So that's what this is all about. And then we are now marking it with some physical training and some online training. Till date, we are still doing the online training every the second Thursday of the month and every 4th Thursday of the month. We have online training for all the non-custodial officers of Nigerian Correctional Service across the country. We still do it. This Thursday again, there will be a focus on parole. And the
great job, doctor. Many times I'm torn between doctor and prof, so don't mind me.
It's okay. It's okay.
No. If proper implementation had followed on the non-custodial, part of the problem that we have so much hue and cry about, the congestion in prisons, would definitely have been largely taken care of, isn't it?
Yes, and many more. So let me explain to you. You know, the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019 is a beautiful piece of legislation. I'm not saying it's perfect, no law is perfect,
of course.
But I knew countries that were asking for soft copies of that to just copy and paste in their own law. If you look at the whole of section 2 sub 1 A, B, C, D, which tells you the objective of this new law, piece of cake. Now, you asked the question about non-custodial. So I will take one issue because those 4 sections under section 2.1, that is section 2 sub 1, tells you about the objective. But one of them, which is on section 2.1b, is about non-custodial. I'll pick that and discuss it. Yeah. And if you have time, you can ask me about the other 3. Now, non-custodial measures, part of what it does is it saves government money. So it's not just about dealing with the overcrowding. It saves money. So the money that the government would have been spending
on feeding
not only feeding.
Yeah,
remember,
a whole lot of.
For the government, it's not only feeding. Feeding is there. You have the issue of the overhead. You have the issue of medical. You have the issue, just name it, transportation of feeding made to court. The list is endless, and people are not even quantifying those costs. The second is, you know, imprisonment is very harmful. People don't understand that, and that's why it's very worrisome for power. And each time we talk about the obsession that people have about custodial sentences, because what happens is that inside there, people need to understand there are people who are innocent. Exactly. It's not everybody that are criminals. There are people who are innocent. There are people who are minor offenders,
exactly.
And then of course you have the serious offenders. The minor offender and the innocent, by putting them in custody, do you know what happens? You open association to criminal element. So you are actually breeding more criminals. So
rather than reform them, you get to harden some of them, you get to damage them.
Because, and I tell you why. Because first I have told you that segregation, the issue of the fact that there are different people coming there. Yeah. You also find out that the segregation doesn't happen. Segregation is like categorization of people. If you are first offender, you'll be here. If you are waiting trial, in those days, awaiting trials used to be separated from convicted. But when you have overcrowding, it's
everybody is just
even you can talk about first offenders and more serious offenders. Now it is the offense as they see in the warrant. Even if it is an exaggerated offense, they say it. They take it. Okay, now, but what it happens is that is not happening. What I can tell you that clearly still happens is the fact that males will be kept in a different section in terms of the mixed facility than females. But a lot of time you have a waiting trial mixing up with the convicted because of population, especially in the cosmopolitan area. But what that does, even if it is the same waiting trial and waiting trial or the same convicted, what happens here is that the person gets to know this person, and maybe when you are leaving, you say, "Oh, I'll link you up to my friend." Then you're linking you up to the other people who are out in the community who also have a problem in terms of criminal behavior. And of course, since many people are stigmatizing them, the society doesn't want to rehabilitate them. They go closer to the other ones.
And then that's why you have a rate of return.
Yes, recidivism, technically, which is reoffending.
Yes,
but that is not it all. Every time you take somebody from the community and put it in custody, you break a lot of pathways that are supposed to help the person stabilize in the community. If the person had a job, the boss would have fired him.
Yeah, definitely.
If you had a house, the rent. If you had a good relationship, it becomes a problem.
Yes.
Do you understand?
If you had a marriage,
God will help us.
Yes.
Now, so you kind of understand, and I just gave you a little spec about the problem, and then there is also effect on the people we call the forgotten prisoners, the forgotten inmates. Who are they? The family members, the wives, the husbands, the children.
The children.
They are going that the society begins to look at them as devil, mission, whatever it is. Meanwhile, they carry that burden on top of what they are going through, and that's why you also have evidence of cycles of criminality even within the family. Okay, so I was trying to say to you, you are very correct. If you utilize more of our non-custodial, you do much work better. Let me give you one more last point on this. If somebody, and I will just explain it quickly, if somebody had been sentenced to imprisonment with a custodial sanction, and the person say was given 10 years or 5 years, whatever, and it gets to the time the person is supposed to be released from custody, if the correctional officer has every reason to believe that this person hasn't changed, he's going to commit more crime, maybe even overhead him to planning another crime, Do you know that the custodial officer will not detain them, but they will open the gate and allow them to go? Once your term of imprisonment has expired, or it's about the time you're supposed, the date you're supposed to leave, they will not hold you back. They will open the gate and you go.
What would you have suggested?
Now listen, that is what you can do where you have only custodial sentence as an option. But where you have also the non-custodial element, which is the community service, you have a 360-degree coverage on supervision if you apply it well. What that means is that when the persons are in custody, the custodial officers will supervise them.
Yes.
When the persons are going to be released by any form, whether because they have finished the term of imprisonment, or whether there is a prerogative of mercy applied, or whether they are on parole, which is another part of non-custodial, or whether for any reason they are released on bail or whatever it is, but they are released to the community. The non-custodial officers in the community will begin to continue to supervise in the community. So you understand? When you're in custody, there is supervision. When you are in community, there is supervision. So that is all round 360 degree. And that is what the option that gives you when you are applying both. Okay? So it is a beauty for the nation. So any nation that does not do this, and for us, we have the legal framework. So it is important that we understand the benefit.
Prof, let's do a shift to what this current assignment that the federal government has given to you. You are the secretary of that committee, right?
The panel.
Investigating alleged corruption, torture, abuse, and all that in correctional service. And then you held your first public hearing sometime in December.
Yes.
What's your assessment of that?
Okay. Thank you very much. That's so the public hearing that was held in December on the 12th and 13th of December was only for 2 days, was primarily to receive the report of those who went to audit custodial centers in some locations, in about 8 states, 8 locations plus the 7 states plus FCT. So their reports were received by the panel, and the panel interrogated those reports. We asked questions for clarification. The general public also had opportunity to ask questions and then to request the panel to adopt or accept or not to accept those reports. So it went very well, and it threw up again a lot of issues. And remember that the panel's work is to look at the holistic aspects in terms of reform following the directive of the Honorable Minister of Interior. So what we're doing is to begin to understand what came up, because those audits included audits of the cases, the inmates, those who are waiting trial, what were the reasons, and all of that. So those factors enabled us to also include other things in terms of what we would then begin to do further consultation and further inquiries on. Now, but there will also, because that was just the first piece, it was just a little thing that we had done for those 2 days. From these 2 weeks in March, from the 3rd of March to the 14th of March of 2025, the panel will be having the second public hearing. And during that second public hearing, it will be able to treat the individual complaints that have come in. It will be able to treat the issues, have some consultations, with certain professional groupings, but also with certain key institutions.
Okay, so your panel is empowered to receive complaints from the public.
Yes.
People who feel
aggrieved, or you have any information that's showing that you have the rights have been abused, or a
relation who is
or
in
whatever
prison.
It is by the correctional service and all of that. Any issue you have, including even memorandum on terms of any recommendation that you have. This is an opportunity that I would say. I mean, it's like what happened in the UK. There was Honorable Justice Wolf. There was a time that there was a problem in the UK prisons, and that raised an opportunity for the work of Honorable Justice Wolf, and that brought a lot of reforms. So this is an opportunity for Nigeria to make input so that these recommendations will be very comprehensive, and that we will be able to have interventions that will actually help us have the kind of correctional service that Nigerian desires.
Now, if there are Nigerians who have such issues and they bring them to the notice of the panel, are they protected? I mean, is it possible that they could get some reprisal from maybe persons who are involved in, who are alleged to be involved.
So it depends on the nature, just like in the court, whatever. It depends on the nature of the complaints and the nature of the issues that you found. What is important is that you are able to send those complaints or rather to the panel, and simply you can just simply address it to the chairperson of the investigative panel on corruption and other violations against the alleged corruption and other violations against the Nigerian Correctional Service, the Office of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Interior.
Does it have to be hard copy?
No, we have also an email. Okay. You can send also directly to the email, which is investigative.panel@interior.gov.ng, and we will receive those. So it is important that through there, and it is clear, part of what will also be done, depending on the nature of those complaints, we'll be able to know the ones that will be done in the open, the ones that won't be, and the ones that we will just be able to be guided by what we have received. What is important is that we want to be sure that people are given information that are verifiable.
Right.
You can't make accusation that we can't find, but at least even if you point the panel to those issues, the panel will also be in a position to investigate.
To try and get
and remember that the panel is also visiting. We've done that. We will continue to do that, visiting different custodial centers, and we're doing that too. Panel members.
Now you're going to have to give that email maybe twice consecutively and slowly. Okay. I mean, so that maybe somebody's listening and wants it, so they can take it straight away.
I'm just going to do that right away. And we also have phone lines, but those phone lines that we have, you can, if you need more clarification, you can actually indicate to the you are able to indicate to the panel that when you call those numbers.
All right.
So we can also. I just want to make sure that I get it. But as I said, this is a very important opportunity.
So this is a wonderful opportunity for you out there. If you have some issues, you are aggrieved, you think that your right has been trampled upon by the Correctional Service, or your person, somebody who's related to you, somebody who is your whatever, has gone through some torture, unnecessary torture or whatever, you have an opportunity to do a submission to this panel, and they'll take it up from, she's saying on behalf of the panel that it will be looked into, and when necessary steps will be taken to, where possible, or where possible steps will be taken to correct such situation. Let's have the...
So the email is as follows: investigativepanel@interior.gov.ng.
All right.
So just spelling that all in small letters.
Investigative panel,
one word together,
at interior.gov.ng.
Right. That's the email.
Right.
Now the numbers. Can I give those numbers?
Oh, why not? Yeah.
So the numbers those numbers, in case if you need any clarification, these are all Nigerian numbers. And if you're calling from outside Nigeria, of course, you put +234 and you remove 0. So from within Nigeria is 081 329 79406. I repeat, 081 329 79406. Another number, 081 1886 5080. 081 1886 5080. Another number, 091 1769 1280.
I guess we'll leave it there.
Okay.
Yeah. Whoever is really serious about getting through would have gotten 1 or 2 numbers from that. And so you have this wonderful opportunity to reach out. Don't die in silence. Government has put this in place for you to get some measure of what do you call it now, succor. And so please take advantage of it. If you have been aggrieved in one way or the other, this is an opportunity to get some federal government intervention. So investigative panel at interior.gov.ng. That's the email that you can use, and then you had those several numbers. Please take take advantage of this, and let's see. I mean, let's let it be that you submitted your complaint and it was not attended to.
And they also able to attend the public hearings.
Okay. And
these public hearings will take place from the 3rd to the 14th of March 2025, and the venue will be Abuja Continental.
Now let me ask, still talking about the modalities of the public hearing. Now, if somebody walks in, and does he have to have submitted his complaint before coming in?
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, because we have to organize. Like now, we've received complaints, and we're issuing now both the case numbers and as well as the notification for the people who have been invited, who have submitted their cases, and indicating to them the date that their cases have been slated.
Oh, okay.
But also, as part of what will happen during the second public hearing, is also that we will be having consultations with some selected, associations, especially some professional associations. So there will be some consultations. Those thematic consultations are also shadowed, and the relevant stakeholders for the thematic consultations is not all of them. We're only going to deal with 2 or maybe 3 thematic consultations during the space of the 2 weeks, but then the other ones we take it on. So with the next public hearing, we'll be taking the complaints as well as consultations on thematic issues and professional engagements.
All right, thanks, Prof. We'll go on a break just to take a breather, and we'll be right back. And when we do come back, the line will be open 08029938365, as you already know, and you could bring up your question or make your contribution concerning the correctional center, and it will be well received, as in so long as this is done respectfully, in so long as we can ensure that there's no unnecessary rambling. You can put your points together on paper so that you can flow easily. That's one. 2, ensure that the volume of your TV set is low, and as much as possible walk away from the TV set so there's no interference. Let's get this as the guidelines before we call, and we'll have a seamless program together. So we go on this break and we'll be right back. Welcome back, dear viewers. You're still on to the Polity, coming live from the Abuja studio of KAFTANTV. And by the way, KAFTAN stands for King Adebayo Film and Theatre Arts Network Television. It's not KAFTAN the dress, it's KAFTAN King Adebayo Film and Theatre Arts Network Television. Yeah, so, and we're coming to you live from the Abuja studio. Of course, my name is Dayo Omoogun. I've not done a change of name. And with me in the studio is Associate Professor, I prefer the Associate Professor to the Dr. Uju Agomoh, and she's been opening up a whole lot about the correctional centers, about the efforts that her organization had put in to ensure a better life for our prisoners or people in correctional services, and what she's doing currently with the federal government to also ensure that they can have a better welfare, if you like. It's been, I mean, if you were at the public hearing, you would, it was a huge eye-opener for me, and that's part of where I really felt the need that we needed, immediately I said, would like to have you and all that. And situations where, for example, you had the judicial system itself, the administration of justice, frustrating effective correctional service delivery. For example, we did hear at the public hearing of situations where reassigning of cases could take upwards of a year, 2 years, and so on. And within that period, the person is still an awaiting trial person. So what that says is that the problem is not only with the correctional service itself. There are several other contributing factors and bodies and institutions. Now, so what can be done within this nexus, within this space? What can be done?
I think it's important that we see this. I'll make 3 concrete points, to help us understand how to connect the dots.
By the way, I'm sorry. You can call in right now. The number is on the screen, 08029938365. Please do call in, and let's have your contribution. Yeah, go on.
So the very first thing to mention is we need to see this as a system.
Yes.
And that's the problem. So we need to see this justice system.
Yes, not as disparate.
No. You can't just say, okay, maybe you're working or you're doing work and talking about police or talking about the court. Even when you are focusing on a particular agency, it is important to ensure that the involvement of others are important. And that's why in the panel, for example, we have scheduled things that would be done with each of the relevant sectors so that they can understand what is happening with relation to their action towards
what we are how their own ineffectiveness contributes to.
And what will they propose to now do going forward? Because it is important that everybody understand that this solution have to be solution that we all need to put on. So the first point, as I said, is to say that it's just like your body. It's a system.
Yeah.
So if your neck is aching, it affects other parts.
Yes.
It affects your full functionality. The second point is that we must also see this as a whole of government approach. What I mean that every sector of government
must be involved.
Have to be keen into this process, and that's one of the beauties of the model state correctional service law, which has also another trajectory that have been developed following the concurrent placement of correctional service, which now, as you may know, with the alteration in the constitution, the correctional service, both the state and the federal, now have a role to play. But the point here is that if you are Ministry of Agriculture, what is the role? Can you not do something around the Ministry of Health? So not just necessarily leaving everything to the correctional service, because it will be like you are jack of all trades, master of none. So that whole of government approach is very important. The last loop into it is the fact that we must also see this as a whole of society's approach.
Yeah.
So everybody, including you and I, have a role to play. And it is not just when the person comes into custody. You need what you need to do to prevent offending behavior in the first instance. So the prevention aspect is there. Then what needs to happen while the person is there, and what needs to happen.
I'm talking about preventing offending behavior. That should start with the family.
Yes.
The very smallest unit of society, because if there is proper guidance and socialization, a lot of the problems that we encounter, a lot of the offenders will probably not venture into some of those things.
Yes, but there are even somewhat of the early warning signals, so issues around where you see young people who are looking around, they're using drugs, or they're playing transit, they're not going to school, and so many of them. So there are certain things that can also be done, and these things need to also be fully kind of integrated. Look at the issue about torture, for example. Why will we be taking people, arbitrarily arresting people, detaining them, torturing them? There's no way you can have justice that way. So these are all part of the issues that the panel is trying to understand more, receiving complaints from people about, and then trying to get Nigerians into a mode of solution. We want sustainable solutions that are effective.
I think it's important to also emphasize the point you just made about whole of society approach. For example, one of the things that really puts people, depresses people who have gone through that system is stigmatization. Once you stigmatize someone who has gone through that, there's every likelihood that that person could go back, or it could affect members of his household, like or his or her household, like you hinted at, and that in itself is a fault, is a problem emanating from society, and we need to really wake up to that.
And then let me tell you, the sad part of it is what you just described tend to happen more with people who are poor. When the rich who have stolen and who have done all the negative things, the society celebrate them, and meanwhile the person who have just perhaps stolen a small chicken or whatever, not that I'm holding brief for such, but we're saying that it looks like justice looks at the status and the rich differently. There is one of the projects we did is what we talked about, criminalization of poverty. What is talk about criminalization of poverty deals with the issue of, it's like talking about decriminalization of petty offenses. Petty offenses, you are walking on the road, you pick the person. If the person doesn't pay fine, you land the person into custody.
those kind of things should be.
You know, there are a lot of big things that you should not use imprisonment to deal with, and that's part of what made us to think that what we have is an obsession
with custodial
sentence by the general public, by the judiciary, and by many. And that's why one of the things we need to do is let's create awareness to people so that they understand that they are being very harmful to the society. Do you know, part of what I also think is the issue is that we do not understand that there's a very close connection between justice, security, and development. You get? Between corrections and development. Between corrections and security. If we understand that, we will not be brewing and breeding criminals. In the sense of over-utilization of custodial sentences.
Ordinarily, Prof, please permit me, whoever it is. Now, ordinarily, the correctional center should, according to its name, correct offenders.
Yeah.
But what we find a lot of times is that the people are further damaged. Now, what exactly is at the root of this?
You know, that is again part of what is being uttered there. You know, it's important that when you make laws, you provide the enablement, the resources to effectively implement those laws. You provide the mechanism to monitor the implementation of those laws. You provide incentives for compliance. And de-incentives for non-compliance.
Penalties, if you like, for non-compliance, yeah?
Yeah. So what it means that there must be a motivation for somebody to comply with what you have put in.
Yes.
So part of the problem is that and I think that's why the panel is looking at the things like the way it's looking at it, you need to be able to fight, because just take the fact of when if the staff is overstretched, if they don't have adequate staff, if they don't have adequate welfare package, if they don't have adequate capacity, if they don't have adequate processes that if you are corrupt, you are picked up. Because tomorrow, the next person will do it. There must be checks and balances. So again, it is looking at this and then utilizing the facility for what it is meant for. For only the people, it's supposed to be as a last resort. The Honorable Minister of Interior said this the other day, and I just love the way he said it. He said that the custodial sentences should be a measure of last resort, whilst the non-custodial sentences should be a measure of first resort. So, you know, when you do more of those, you find that when somebody comes in, right from the one the person comes in, you have a risks and needs assessment. So you understand everybody who have committed offense, there is a reason the person have committed. I'm not even talking about justifying it. But those reasons, if you don't want that person to commit that offense tomorrow, you must be intentional in how dealing with those risk factors. Some people, maybe they have anger management problems. Maybe they have, that's why they are fighting, killing, and all that. So the intervention for such a person must include in an anger management course. Some of them, it may be that because they are using drugs, and you must have a drug rehabilitation program as part of it. Some maybe because of lack of education. So my point is that we need to be very much guided and strategic in the intervention that we put, and once you deal with all of these things, you are dealing with the needs of staff, you're dealing with the needs of the inmates, you are also ensuring there is oversight. Because where there is no strong accountability and oversight, things will go wrong. You know?
I agree with you, Prof. Now, quickly, let's talk about the very poor facilities in these centers. At the public hearing the other day, we learned that there are people who have to buy their own mattresses in the same place where it's been alleged that there are places where people pay for maybe 5-star level kind of accommodation, 5-star hotel level kind of accommodation with all kinds of facilities and everything, yet the most basic resources, the most basic facilities that are required are not enough to go around the people. Should this really happen? And how can we get around this?
Okay, I will speak to this generally because it's a matter that has been brought to the panel. So we are going to look at the facts, and we are going to verify, and then we are going to also make recommendations in relation to what we see. So I'm not going to speak that in detail, but I do know that we had those complaints from some of the audit reports. But what I would say to you is that it is important to also look at issues of bad infrastructure. So any infrastructure you have that is being applied for more persons that are supposed to take it, it's going to be a problem. Every custodial center, with over 260 something of them in the country, including the satellites, do have designated capacity. Section 12, subsection 4 to 12 of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019 put a check and balance process. It puts an early warning signal whereby he says that the superintendent in charge of the custodial center and the controller in the state, if they notice that the population in that correctional center is exceeding the population, that they should send a notification to the chief judge, to the attorney general, and all of that, and they should give them 3 months to respond. If they don't do anything to reduce that population, if they bring any other image, they should reject. So we need to be sure, is that happening? So again, part of what we must also do is that we need to look at the ways of you don't put incentives in overcrowded. As a matter of fact, you put penalties when facilities are overcrowded. So you put incentives to celebrate mechanisms, celebrate agencies and officers that try to ensure that you are utilizing within the capacity. What that means is that you need to use non-custodial measures. That means you used to use bail generously. So, you need to use, again, I come back to the same phrase that the minister used, Minister of Interior, use custodial centers as a measure of last resort. So those are part of the issues. Now, as a country, we must ensure that if we put people in custody, you must be, it's just like you invite somebody into your house, you keep the person there, you have to feed the person, you have to clothe the person, you have to take the person to hospital. You don't keep people and you don't have enough place for them to lie down. If you don't have enough mattresses, perhaps you need to be thinking about, should I have that number here? Maybe you have only the ones that the number of mattresses, you count the number you have. As I said, I don't want to go into the issue. We're going to look at it generally. But it is necessary that we make sure that we have a system where that connection between justice, corrections, security, development is seen very seriously.
All right, we have barely 10 minutes to go. But just before we round up, I just want to ask, is it right? I read a report last year where you have, as we speak, maybe it would have increased, but as at that time you had about 3,000 people who had death sentence hanging over them, who were on death row. Now, these people were talking about constraints of space and budgeting and all that, those kind of challenges. If you have 3,000 people, is it not better to do what you need to do, or commute to life, or free whoever you want to free, and so that we know the definite figures that truly belong in that place?
Okay. So first, the issue about do what you want to do, if I should interpret it to be kill them, I say it is wrong. And let me explain why.
Let me before you explain, maybe I should bring this into the space. If it is wrong, for example, if the people involved had killed, and now the justice system, they've gone through it and they said they should be killed. So tell me how it is wrong. That's
why it is wrong. I mean, one of the documentaries that Prawa produced is actually on death penalty. We have, and it is we have close to about 15 of some are short videos and other. But there are some major ones, including this one on death penalty. It is about, and what we raised issues here was to look at what are the reasons why the penalty is wrong. Now, part of the major problem, especially apart from the fact that the United Nations have said, please, every country of the world should have a moratorium. Don't kill. But I will tell you something underneath that, which is one thing that is very key in Nigeria, is the fact that the error margin is too wide You know that even in climes like the United States, and places where you think that they have all the technologies, there are people who are being killed, and it's the wrong person that are being killed.
Wrong person.
Yes. There have been a lot of errors.
So the wrong person went through the entire...
Yes, and even the fact that DNA test, it was only through DNA they knew that that person was innocent. It has also happened in Nigeria many times. There are people who have been killed who should not have been killed. There are people who are on death row, and later to be found that they had no case in that. But come to think of it, you and I, unless the person does not want to be sincere to themselves, if you are to look at critically the error margin in this country, where are our forensic laboratories? Where are our forensics doing the right thing that you need to do in terms of ensuring that the evidence and establishing proper guilt? So your guess is as good as mine. I can tell you many people I know, I interact with in custody. Many people I know that have been sentenced even for offenses that the trajectory has absolutely nothing to do with whatever they have done. One of the things that our organization have highlighted is the error, I think, that section 35 subsection 5 of the Constitution does to us. Because when you look at that section in the Constitution, you see that it talks about the time margin, that if you are arrested within 24 hours, maximum 48 hours, you are supposed to go to court.
Yeah.
Now that same provision, section makes a proviso which excludes certain offenses from that, from the margin of the 24 hours.
Yes.
Now, if the law enforcement person arrests you and want you to know that they are serious with you, they can charge you for anything. They can charge you for armed robbery if there was no
even if there was no armed robbery.
Yeah, and the investigation is still going on.
Let's take this very first one. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, KAFTAN TV.
Yeah, you're welcome to KAFTAN TV. Yeah.
Thank you. I remain honorable online from local Jacobi State.
Give me your name again.
Honorable Dr. Onaji.
Okay, Dr. Onaji.
From local Jacobi State.
Go ahead, please. Let's have your take.
Yeah. I think the perspective we are discussing is actually very interesting. In which about the challenge is from the process how personnel of our agencies are recruited. If you know this particular correctional agency, the majority of them, they got employed on the ground that not by merit, not by proper recruitment process. So when you engage any kind of reform you introduce in that kind of establishment, it's like you are reforming something or nothing. You see, our institutional challenge that affects most all sectors of our establishment in this country is the same challenges that this particular agency is facing. So the kind of people that you come in contact, because when you visit some of our prisons, you shock because the behavior, the way the correctional personnel relate, even with the prison. So in which is the serious challenge because they are not really, there's no reform. If people are bringing in to prison for total reform, but at the end, what you see is like, most of them learn many dubious things from even the correctional center.
Yeah.
So we need to kind of start from what kind of people manage our establishment.
All right, doctor. All right, doctor. Would you be suggesting, by what you have said, are you suggesting that part of the reform should be like recruiting afresh to replace what you have?
See, as long as if you can, any further recruitment that will take place in any agency or operational center should be based on merit.
All right, okay.
Then you look for the best of Nigerians to be engaged in this particular center, so that at the end you see people of well character, people with integrity, people that fear God
All right, doctor. All right, doctor. I'll need to let you go. I guess your point has been well made. Thank you.
Thank you. But just to say to Doctor, thank you for your contribution. But just to say, there are also some very, very educated and well-mannered and ethically in-line officers. So it's not that everybody is bad.
Yeah.
And then also, but I do like the point that he made about ethics. So it is important that ethics are integrated and that you take steps to celebrate those who have displayed ethics. And it's not just about the correctionals. It is about the whole of it. It is about the whole of the justice sector and beyond.
Yeah, that's correct. By the way, the people who make who take those jobs, they're not from Jupiter, they're not from Mars, they are from within Nigeria. So except you must talk about the national reform to get the kind of people you're talking about. Yes, maybe you want to conclude your thoughts.
I can't remember what we were talking about then. What was it again?
Well, even
I can't remember what we were discussing, but I do know that the issues that we had made in terms of infrastructure, I think we have made that point. But I think whatever it is, I may have.
All right, okay. So before we go, I think I have just one more question. We have barely 2 minutes or 3. Now, in all of this, in your last line, what would you be saying to Nigerians? What would you be saying to the correctional service? What would you be saying to any of the publics?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
For Nigerians, I want to say that the opportunity that presents itself before us in terms of this independent investigative panel on alleged corruption and other violations against the Nigerian Correctional Service is an opportunity that everyone should key into, and let's have the recommendations that will help us have the kind of correctional service that all of us will be happy about, and that those recommendations, when they do come out, that we should take steps to implement it. I also say that the implementation of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019 is very imperative. It needs to be done and done urgently. Again, to understand that there's a conclusive link, there's a link between justice, security, and development. We must make it something of priority that we will need to invest in these sectors, in justice, in security, and development, and ensuring that stops, including education and health, are all integrated in that process. And now for the correctional service officers, I want to say that it's important to ensure that if you had been doing good, implementing the laws the way they ought to be, just continue to do so. If you have not, it is important that you desist from such action. But more than anything else, I want you to see your job as a golden opportunity to impact on people's life, change their life for those who are offenders, because many of them, they have been difficult for their families to do so, have been very difficult for the educational sector or the society to do so. The same vein, if you have been mean to these people, it is also about a seed. Everything you do is a seed. And someday, whether now or thereafter, I believe, you will also reap it. But everything else is to say, just keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully, through this reform, all of the necessary support that the Nigerian Correctional Service requires will be made available to you. And for everyone else, it is important to help and make your own contribution and see how we all can make our impact within the spheres that we can. Thank you again for the opportunity, for having me, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much for coming, and don't forget that the next set of public hearing, which will last 2 weeks, right?
Yes, from the 3rd
begins
to the
3rd of March and will be concluded 14th of March. And you can go there and make your submissions, and it will be taken.
Submit before
then, and come and present yourself. Yeah. Thank you very much for staying with KAFTAN TV this afternoon. I hope that it's been worth your while. Do go and tell your neighbor that this is where it's happening right now. Every other TV station queues behind KAFTAN TV. Tell them. My name is Dayo Omoogun, even as I leave now. Tomorrow is another very beautiful day. Please don't forget to join the Polity tomorrow and several of our other programs, Matters Arising in the evening and others. Thank you very much for being there.